Another type of source to consider as you are thinking about what you want to use for your writing are the difference between primary versus secondary sources. Ideally, you would have a range. You would use some primary sources and some secondary sources. Primary sources are first-hand accounts of something. So it's usually from a person who has the experience and then writes about it. Primary sources are writing down their observations, their experiences. So they are writing down facts. They're not really interpreting the event. The nice thing about primary sources is they offer insider's views. So anything that's an original document is a primary source. So a primary source is diaries, speeches, letters, autobiographies, and then also look at some of these interviews. If you conduct an interview or listen to an interview that has been conducted, that is a primary source because it's a first-hand account. Also, you can do surveys, and that would be a primary source. So maybe you want to do something about, how many students drive their cars to school and how long is each person's commute. Perhaps you give a survey about that to your peers. That would be a primary source. Creative works are primary sources, so poetry, blogs, music, all of those things. And actual artifacts, things that you can hold in your hand, would be a primary source. So pottery, a physical space, if you wanted to use a physical space as a source, that would be a primary source. Specific examples, the Diary of Anne Frank. Obviously, it's a diary. It's her first-hand account. Let's say you listen to an interview with a really famous person like Nelson Mandela. A letter, in this example, Emily Dickinson to Thomas Bowles. Take a look at the image on the right. This is a tweet here. This is during the shooting in Florida that happened a couple years ago, and people who were tweeting from inside of the school, that is a primary source. They are there, they are writing about their experience, and they're communicating in real time. Secondary sources, on the other hand, take the primary source and they analyze and they interpret them. So it's a secondary source because it's like a second-hand account. This is, you're taking the facts and then you're giving, or whoever is offering, some sort of understanding or greater perspective. Secondary sources include anything that's been published, like a textbook, a magazine article, commentaries, scholarly articles, anything, that has been published is often considered, I guess not anything, because the Diary of Anne Frank was published, but you get the idea of what is often considered a secondary source. So specific examples, your history textbook, a book about the effects of World War II, a Time magazine article, right? And if you take a look on the right, this would be, this is an article from Axios, I think, interpreting the school shooting. So we saw the primary source with the tweet. This would be a secondary source of a journalist who's interpreting the event and possibly using some of those primary sources to talk about what happened. Okay, and that's it.